the heck was going on there. All right, hey guys, what is happening? Obviously, this is War Stories Sunday with Papa C. We are on our 8th episode right now, and let's recap a little bit of what happened last week. So, last week, I was out in Musakela, Nowzad, Lashkar. I was with Kilo Company of 3-7. We were doing a 3-week mobile op. We were relieving some of the pressure off of the 3 battalions that were actually in Marja. So we were there. We were located at that location because we were trying to take some of the pressure off of the battalions that were there because we knew that the Taliban was moving in there. Went over some of the stories from 2 weeks ago. We first went out there. First contact was me getting, our little 360 was getting, we got hit by that 155 shell that they converted over. They fired at us. We chased after. And then ended up going out into the Wadi. And I was with EOD, tied up with EOD. And I ended up going and mounting 240 Golf on the turret with the EOD guys as we moved out to go help out the wrecker. As we were wrecking and pulling out the downed Mat V that was there in the Wadi, I heard a pretty good gunfight that was going on up the hill. And that's where Corporal Woodruff at the time ended up taking an enemy PKM, which is a machine gun that the Taliban used, out of the hands of the enemy and literally beating that man to death with his own rifle, with his own machine gun, and then turning the machine gun loose on the remainder of the Taliban. From there, we moved a little bit further south, I think a little bit further towards Marja, and we started to get a lot more activity, especially on the ICOM chatter and so forth. And that's when we came upon a pretty gnarly Taliban meeting that was going on at that time. Oh, goodness. Yeah, that was a good one. Fuck. Came across that. We saw all this dispersion that happened. Ended up coming across that vehicle that had it was wads. It was the most money I've ever seen in my life. It was stacks of money, like this big, stacked upon each other, duct taped down, and then it lined the entirety of the car. It was fucking crazy. So we knew those guys were no good. They had just left a meeting because we were cruising up on that meeting. And it was a big Taliban meeting that they had. That's a water. Fuck. Why am I yawning? After that, those 2 guys were sent back via helicopter to, I believe, Camp Leatherneck. Yeah. Camp Leatherneck to be interrogated by the CI Human guys there that were running the detachment, the detainment facility. From there, we thermited that fucking car. Put a thermite grenade, white phosphorus grenade on the engine, and it just erupted into flames, which was fucking crazy. Right after that, we ended up the following day getting orders to go meet up a little bit further west, and we had a little battalion. The battalion commander was out there, and we met up, and that's when we got the word that we were actually going to be cutting short our 3-week mobile op. I think it ended up just being about a little over 2 weeks, and we got the word that we are going to pack up and move back because we have some orders that are coming down the pike. As we call it, orders coming down the pike of what's going to happen. And obviously we were hearing some rumor mills that 3-7 was going to be put in a different location because that's where they're needed. And what was going to happen was we were going to go over and do a quick left seat, right seat with the Georgians and Bougie and the location to the north, as well as the location a bit further west where my buddy Jesus was at. Jesus. Now, we ended up going back to Bougie Bast, Went right back to Bougie Boss Pass. Again, I'm with India now. And the rest of Kilo went back to their old base in order for us to do this left seat, right seat. So I get back to Bougie Boss, and I find out, because I've been out of communication for this point in time of what's going on. I've been out of communication with my entire team because we had no comms at this point in time. I get back there, and I find out that my teammate Matt up to the north is now getting investigated. It's stupid. Absolutely stupid. Let me go over this story real quick because it fucking kind of sucks, man, to be honest with you. So my buddy Matt was running a source up in the north. That was a very, he was a vetted source. He's been vetted now for quite some time, has been part of our workings, right? So the way that we rank sources is like you rank them based off of their veracity on reporting and how trustworthy they are and all this other stuff. You guys can probably look this up when it comes to all sorts of stuff like this. So I don't want to go into too much depth. But regardless, this source was important to us. He was giving us good information. We've trusted him now for about 2 or 3 years up to this point, from what I understand. Has a pretty large dossier and all that good stuff. And this source was telling my buddy, my fellow teammate collector, that people were harassing him and all sorts of stuff, and people were coming in there and trying to take things from him, and he was saying that it was Taliban and all this other stuff. Oh, fuck. Man, I'm fasting today, guys. Sorry. I'm fasting. I'm fasting right now. I haven't eaten at all today. That's why you're going to see me drink a lot of water. I'm freaking hungry. And that's probably why I'm yawning right now, is because of that. So I try to fast at least once a month in order to let autophagy occur. If you guys don't know what autophagy is, look it up. It's pretty good for you. Anyway, so if I yawn, that's what's going on. Anyway, so Matt ends up giving a pistol over to this source in order for him to use as home defense. He's protecting his source. We're getting a lot of good information and reporting from this guy. Matt gives him a pistol. It was approved. It was approved by the command. Even though normally that shouldn't happen, but they did. They actually went through the command, and Matt went to the command and was like, "Hey, this is what we're gonna do." All right. Talks to the commander, the platoon commander, I believe. Anyway, long story short, the platoon commander ends up getting cold feet on the whole thing and getting scared that he's going to get in trouble. So then he goes and he orders Matt to go out on patrol to find the source and get the pistol back so that he doesn't get in trouble. They go out with no comms or something like that, and something fucking weird happens. I don't know. Nothing terrible happens. It's not to protocol. It ends up getting flagged up the kind of chain, like, in a way, because that fucking platoon commander is a scaredy cat that he's going to get in trouble for doing these things. And then all of a sudden the whole thing kind of breaks out, right? Everybody kind of finds out about what's going on now. And drama in the military is not good because no one holds on to the drama well. First and foremost, this shouldn't have even been drama. There shouldn't have been drama. Like, this dude was doing his job. He was doing what he was trained to do. We're trained to handle sensitive materials. We're trained to handle all this stuff. We're trained to fucking run sources. We're trained to trust them. And if that trust kind of goes by the wayside, then so fucking be it, kind of deal, right? Like, that's just kind of how things have to be. But no, not in the era of Mr. Barack Obama and political officers is really what it comes down to. These officers instead cover their ass and they do not take care of their troops. So word comes out, everyone gets all scared because none of these officers want a blemish on their record, because therefore they're never going to get sent to the Pentagon, and they're never going to get their generalship, or they're never going to get their fucking deal to go and work at some kind of engineering or whatever the hell kind of firm, like Halliburton and all this other stuff, right? What do we call those things? Contractors. That's what these guys are looking at. This is what these guys are thinking about the entire time they're in the military. They're thinking about their exit plan and how they have to have like a a lack of a blemish on the record. And don't get me wrong, it's not just that. It's the entire military up to this point. Everyone is in this kind of like zero defect, zero forgiveness, no errors kind of deal, right? When I was out at Bougie, too, I didn't even mention this. There was 2 NJPs. So NJP, for those of you guys that don't know, is non-judicial punishment. When you're in the military, you forego your rights as a citizen, and you are judged, right? You can go through a different type of trial in a way, different type of punishment in the military than you would under being a civilian. It's called, fuck me. It's called the UCMJ, right? The Uniform Code of Military Justice. It's a good way to fuck people over, really. Really what it comes down to. I get it. I think it was necessary. I think it still is necessary at the time. But when you have people that are just what the British would call pussers. When you have people that are just there for their own fucking well-being and not for the actual dictates of the job, it's terrible. So anyway, Matt ends up getting in trouble. They end up pulling him out of there and sending him to Leatherneck. He's no longer allowed to really do the job. My lieutenant, who I've brought up in other episodes, fails to protect Matt, does not do his job in order to protect our duty as a counter intel guy, throws Matt completely under the bus and lets Matt get railroaded. Instead of doing his job and standing up for his Marines, he lets Matt get railroaded, is really what it comes down to. So now I get back to Bougie, and I'm hearing all this shit go on. First off, I fucking hate drama. I hate it. There's all this drama going on in this area because there's nothing going on. So that's why they're NJPing people. That's why Matt's getting in trouble. If there was actual kinetic activity going on and people were getting hurt, or if we were actually like, killing Taliban and stuff like that, that would have flown. It would have been fine. Everything would have been great. But because there's nothing going on, people are bored. Idle hands, So now Matt's getting thrown on the bus. I have a weakling of a lieutenant who doesn't give a shit about his troops. He gives a shit about his own profession, right? His own career. And he doesn't care about the job at all. And that's the problem. Like I talk about, if you guys go back all the way to first episode or second episode, when I talk about how being selected kind of like creates this brotherhood, and you know what you're getting into and you know how hard it is. And then we just all of a sudden start taking these lieutenants in out of school that don't have any skin in the game. Skin in the game is one of the most important things out there. Lets you know the cost, So these guys don't have any skin in the game, and they don't really belong to the brotherhood. Instead, they come in as these kind of like bean counters, and they do things from a a very political perspective is really what it comes down to. It's another reason why I don't really believe in politicians right now. These politicians that have never been to war, never served a day in the military, never served really in any type of line of duty that even is commensurate with hard work and discipline and, maybe losing your life. They're the ones making the decisions for all these things now. They don't have any clue. They have no clue what the costs are. They have no clue what the tolls are either, if that makes any sense, right? There's a difference between a cost and a toll for sure. So anyway, get back to Bougie. Don't really know what's going on. We don't have a timeline. But, I get some word from the lieutenant. And he calls me up and he says, be ready to ship out in about 7 days. So when I get back to Bougie, what they actually end up doing is, because the main base is, there's nothing going on, and we're not getting, it's not good for sources to come to the main base because it's so wide and it's open. But what we did in the time frame that I was gone was we actually set up a checkpoint further south, probably about a click south of Bougie, the base, and the town, the village. Even though from the checkpoint we could see the village, it was further south down the wadi, and we were up on like a nice little like plateau in a way. And we were able to set up a checkpoint, which made people come through the checkpoint, and that way they were able to have conversations with them and all this other stuff. And we were just awaiting the Georgians to come in. So it was actually pretty cool because it was like a small contingent of people there, about 20 people. We were just living there, living on MREs kind of deal. It was a little bit ghetto, but it was kind of cool. You're away from the COC too, so you're not having to deal with like the platoon commander and all this other stuff. man, I remember now Staff Sergeant Bennett. Cool. I remember him. He was a good dude. And then I forgot this other staff sergeant's name. He was a shorter Mexican dude. And he was in charge of, like, I don't want to say MPs because we didn't have MPs, but he was more like militarized police. That's what he was kind of doing in that contingent with us. I started about 15 minutes ago. You're good. We're not talking about too much just yet. Just to recap and where I'm at now. And right now where I'm at is, so I'm back in Bougie, the place where there's really not a whole lot of activity going on. But we're pretty much awaiting like some big orders to come down because 3-7, the battalion that I'm with, is going to move out of that Bougie Bast area. And we're going to go somewhere else. And of course, as we talked about, the rumor mill had us going to Sangin. But the problem was the Brits were in charge of Sangin. And whenever you go into that kind of thing, there's a lot of politics because it's like international stuff now, right? They have everything set up for their British contingent, right? They have their own secret computers. It's a mess is really what it comes down to. But the long story is that the Brits were getting hammered. They were getting hammered in Sangin. They lost like 300 people in 1 year. They were taking mass casualties. They were not controlling the space well whatsoever. And they were just not having it, right? So that was the rumor mill, but we had no clue what was going on. All we were being told was like, hey, just get ready to pack up all your stuff. We have to decommission all this stuff here. I was put down at that little checkpoint with Staff Sergeant Bennett and that staff sergeant that I was just explaining. Cool little Mexican dude who actually, for the 5 years before that, he was standing up MSOB, so Marine Special Operations Battalion. And this is back when it was just like a couple companies. It wasn't actually like a full-blown battalion yet. God damn. Anyway. And another thing happened. So we were out there. We went on a small patrol. We went up. It was just a small little village just outside of the checkpoint. We saw one guy that was kind of like farting around in the wadi, like with a stick, like kind of digging and doing a few things like within our plain sight. So we went out and we like interdicted with him, right? And as we were interdicting, we see this guy and he's like starting to like run at us and like bark and do all sorts of like crazy like hostile stuff. And that wasn't normal or typical for people in that area. So we're like, oh my God, this guy probably put an IED in the wadi. We're pretty, believe it or not, actually, sorry, what happened a couple days before that too was he was over by this little watering hole that we had over there, and that's what we were using to go collect water. Well, at least the Afghans that were so we had some Afghan military guys that were attached to us, some Afghan police forces that were at the checkpoint with us. And they were driving their little Jeep over to the watering hole that they go to get their water. And they had an IED, and it actually ended up wounding 2 guys like really badly that we had to helo them out of there, right? So we're kind of like a little bit high strung. And then we see this guy that's going out there and he's like digging around in the wadi. And, the staff sergeant takes a small contingent of dudes and goes over and interdicts this guy. And he's acting really weird. Like I said, barking and like charging at him, but like staying away. He's putting his hands in his pockets and he's not listening to any of these commands. And then I forget what he does, but he does something to like really promote like a violent act in a way. So this staff sergeant actually like clicks off safe and fires a round, and he fires it in between his legs in a way, because I think he realizes like he's realizing as he reacts that what the guy was pulling out of his pocket, right? It looked like, because these guys have like detonating things, right? He ends up pulling something out of his pocket. But anyway, he ends up shooting between his legs, doesn't really do anything, doesn't harm this guy, doesn't do anything. But that ends up getting reported as like a whatever. And then the kid's father comes out and he's like, the kid's retarded. That's what he says. He's like, oh, my kid's special. He's possessed right now by demons. And that's why he's acting this way. This is what these guys say to you. It's so silly. They think we believe this stuff. Actually, most people do believe that stuff. It's so stupid, but they just try to play like they're dumb, and they're like, oh, he's possessed by demons. That's why he's acting this way. So, long story short, nothing happens there. He doesn't injure the guy or anything like that, but he lets the kid know in a way too, like, you were about to get fucking smoked, right? What you're doing is fucked up. Anyway, that ends up getting reported because there was a shot fired or whatever. And then that fucking staff sergeant ends up getting in trouble by the fucking CO, by the platoon commander rather. He gets removed and he gets sent back to Leatherneck, and he's going to get an adverse fit rep and all this other stuff, which is fucking stupid, right? Like, we're in a war zone. There was just a bomb detonation literally 2 days ago just outside of this village, and this guy's hanging out in that exact environment, and then he's acting fucking hostile. Like, these are the levels of man, I don't know the word to use right now, but there was such a zero defect mentality with these officers that anything that could possibly put a stain on their career, they were willing to throw all their Marines under the bus. Like, this was a first off, nothing happened. Nothing came of it. There was no damage done. Second off, the guy was a fuckwad. Okay? Like, you just don't do those kinds of things. That's just not the right behavior. He knew what he was doing. And then third, like, here's what it comes down to is, like, I don't understand from a military leadership position how you're going to promote trust and confidence in getting the job done when anytime someone does something even remotely, like one iota that wasn't perfect, you're just going to throw them under the bus and fucking destroy their career. And that's what we're dealing with. So I'm just like, holy fuck this. I want to get away from India as fast as possible, because these are like two NJPs and then this with that. Like, Matt was attached to India. He's getting thrown under the bus. One other dude had his night vision optics run over. And then he got NJP'd as a fucking Lance Corporal or Corporal. And then now this dude, Staff Sergeant Medina. I can't believe I pulled that one out. Hell yeah. Dude was solid. He was a fucking awesome operator. He was on point. Really good dude. And he gets fucked over because this fucking coward kept playing political bullshit. Anyway. So I'm now there like 3 or 4 days down at this checkpoint. And I get the call to come back up to Bougie proper, the actual base where, this guy that I'm talking about is at. Captain Pat McKinley. Get the call. They say, you got to get up here. Pack all your shit up. We're getting there's a Osprey inbound for you right now. This is how fucking cool it is, right? Me as the sole operator. Shit. Lasagna man. He tried to charge a checkpoint and they had to open up on him with 2 Yeah, not good. You don't, that's what I'm saying is, like, these people though, it's been 2-3 years now at least. Well, sorry, we were in Afghanistan since 2001. Like, these guys, this is 2010. There's been 9 years. You kind of understand, like, the ins and outs. He was looking for something. Now, what we don't know and what we don't realize is this could have been some guy who was actually paid by the Taliban to try to provoke us so that they could turn it into because this is all counterinsurgency is counterinsurgency is just trying to, like, win over the will of the people. And they realized how easy it is for the U.S. to kowtow whenever they get any type of negative publicity. So that's the downfall here. These guys will do things in order to try to provoke us, in order for mishaps to occur, so that they can paint it in a negative light and make it seem as though, Americans are bad. Okay. That's part of it. So anyway, I get my butt back up to Bougie Bost. They bring me up there in a Mat V, get all my shit, pack up all my stuff. I'm fucking ready to rock. I got my own private fucking Osprey coming to pick me up and bring me back to Fob Dea Rom. Get back to Dea Rom, and actually, do I go to Dea Rom or do I go straight to Leatherneck? I can't remember. I think it was Dea Rom. Anyway, I get to Dea Rom. Yeah, I think that, because that's where the lieutenant and my chief were at. Get to Dea Rom, and they're like, all right, so here's the deal, man. And they got like a little brief that's sitting up there, and they're like, we selected you specifically. They said, Capella, all the rumor mills that you've heard have been true. We are going into Sangin. 3-7 is going to be the first battalion to get in there. But the problem is it's going to take about a month or so for them to decom and declassify and do everything they got to do to turn over the Georgians. Oh, shit. I forgot to bring up the Georgians, too. Man, the Georgians. Holy shit. Let me go back a little bit, and then we'll get back into this part of the story, all right? So we had a contingent of Georgians with us at the fucking at the checkpoint. And I got to tell you one thing. These guys are beasts. So if you guys don't know the country of Georgia, it's just outside of Russia and Ukraine, I believe. I didn't check my geography. Dude, this fast right now is fucking killing my brain. Holy shit. Whew. Oh, man. Let's drink some more BCAAs. Geology, the study of rocks. Geography. Anyway. Yeah, the Georgians were these like short, stocky fucks, man. Seriously. Like they are like military standards in the Marine Corps, you got to be kind of lean, right? So for me, I'm 5'11". My height to weight, I was supposed to be ideally 197. I was never, even after boot camp. I got down to 176 in boot camp, and then literally the second I got to Okinawa, I was back up to like 215, 220. I've always been fucking very muscular. Anyway, these guys are like 5'7", like 240. Stumpy dudes. And I was just like, what the fuck? Looking at these Georgians, I was like, dude, these guys are going to have a tough time here. But we went out on a patrol with these guys, and holy fuck, these guys could literally, they were carrying packs like 2 times the size of what we were carrying, plus all their fucking machine guns and stuff. And they were like speeding past us whenever we'd walk up hills or anything like that. They were fucking animals. They were like fucking rams. I can't even call them mountain goats. They were like rams. Just insane. I was like, dude, these guys are fucking nuts. Epic. Fucking hard as nails, too. But these motherfuckers, yeah, stocky as fuck. Seriously, they're like little fucking mountain trolls. But these dudes would seriously eat. Like, they would eat like it was fucking going out of style. We literally had boxes and boxes, like stacks, like walls of MREs. These guys, in like the 5 days that they were there, already fucking plowed through a month's ration of fucking MREs. I was watching these guys sit there for a meal. They would literally eat like 2 fucking MREs or 3 MREs in one sitting. We had to pull them aside. We did. We had to pull them aside at one point and be like, guys, the way you're fucking running through your supplies right now, you're never going to last. Like 1 to 2 MREs a day. 3 at most. Okay? 3 at most. 1 to 2 MREs a day. That's all you need. There's 4,500 calories in here. Don't worry about it. They're like, one dude looks at me and he's like, but we're hungry. That's exactly what his response was. It was fucking amazing. Seeing these Georgians at the chow hall on like Leatherneck and stuff, they would literally, it's so funny. They would have 2 plates and then they would have like a stack of bread, like 6 to 12 pieces of fucking bread there. It was insane. Like these guys, I'm telling you, these guys acted like food was gonna run out fucking next week. They were eating for the goddamn apocalypse. It was fucking nuts. Oh, it was so funny. It was so fucking goddamn funny. Anyway, so I hop on the Osprey. I go back to Dea Rom. My chief and my lieutenant sit me down. They're like, hey, all the rumors are true. We Americans are taking over Sangin. And it's going to take 3-7 about a month to a month and a half to get out there. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, so why am I back here right now? Right? Kind of deal. And they're like, well, the thing is that we don't have any intel assets out there right now. So you are going to go with a small contingent of United States Marines to go into Sangin and start setting up the transfer and the turnover and pass as much information over as possible. You know, obviously setting up source networks and doing all that and going on patrol and all this shit. They're like, are you aware of Sangin, though? Are you aware of what's going on? And, of course, up to that point, I was abreast of what was kind of going on because, you know, being in the intel cycle and all this other stuff, you see like the high impact zones of where reporting is coming out of and where like significant actions are occurring. So significant actions would be something along the lines of like big armaments, high level supply, highest, fuck, come on, brain, let's work. HVI. Oh my God, dude. HVI list, high value individuals, movements and so forth, reporting on that. Obviously IED blasts, death, you know, American casualties or ISAF casualties, stuff like that. And Sangin was the number one place in Afghanistan at that time that had the most significant acts that were going on. So we're all like, that's where we want to be, right? So my chief and lieutenant sit down at the time and they're like, hey, we just want to give you a quick brief on Sangin and let you know what's going on. And they're talking, if you guys note the tone that I'm taking right now, yeah, HIVs. I don't know if you saw this, but you're an asshole if you're not sleeping with people with HIV, says Twitter. So, you know, awful. Anyway, HVIs. Yeah. So they sit me down and they give me kind of like a no kidding analyst brief, and they make my analyst give me a brief on Sangin. So shows me the location, shows me all the reporting that's going on, and they're telling me, you know, so here I am. I just got into Dea Rom. They're sitting me down and they're talking to me with like this morbid tone, like this solemn tone of like, you're going into the shit and you're probably not going to fucking make it because it's this fucking crazy. So they're giving me the brief. They're telling me all about the top level HVIs that are there. And then they get into all the significant actions, and they're showing me all the guys that are in the location that I'm going to. Fob Jackson, which is the district center of Sangin, Afghanistan. It's where the governor, the chief of police, the chief of police is there. All sorts of stuff's going on. They're on our base. And that's where a lot of things are going on. It's where the main shura is going on, the big councils. The top 10 HVIs are in Sangin, Afghanistan. So, you know, back in the day, how they used to, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this type of thing, but they had the cards in Vietnam where they had like the top people, the top bad guys that they were trying to hunt and go after. Oh, fuck me. Ugh. That's kind of what the HVI list was for us. So top 10 were in Sangin, Afghanistan, moving around. They showed me all the reporting of what was going on. So like the best thing I could tell you is like target rich environment. And it's like the highest level targets in Afghanistan at the time of supposed Al-Qaeda and all this other stuff, of Taliban and shit. So they end up finishing off telling me about the significant actions that were going on there. IED blasts like almost every day, dismantling vehicles, not just vehicles, but a lot of the movements there are foot. So a lot of dismounted IED strikes. The typical casualty is usually 2 to 3 limbs missing, resulting in either severe injury or death. Numerous strikes in one patrol or whatever, or that's happening numerous times. High-level weapons such as the Dishka, which is an anti-aircraft 12.7 millimeter machine gun with armor-piercing rounds that can puncture or give our armored vehicle some trouble. all sorts of craziness, lots of IEDs, lots of IED manufacturing, lots of heroin smuggling. It was just, it's, they're like, dude, this is gnarly. Like, this is wild. And then to top it off, and this is what they finish it up with. Not to mention, they just shot down Pedro 66, which was a Black Hawk helicopter that the Air Force PJs were using. That's what Pedro 66 was. Pedro 66 would get called in. So what Air Force PJs do, what paratroopers do, is they fly in to save troops when the area is deemed way too hot. Okay, and the term "way too hot" means this: it's too hot for people to go in and risk more casualties because the firefights are that devastating. Pedro 66 was going in there to casevac a wounded British Marine, and they were shot down. And that aircraft crashed, and it killed the entire troop, the entire crew in there, the 4 PJ troopers and the 2 pilots. So they're telling me this, and they're like, listen, you have been selected to go here and do this. It's just going to be you. We're actually going to give you an interpreter this time, so it's going to be you and your interpreter, and you're walking into this. We're going to give you 3 days. Say your goddamn prayers, right? Because the significant acts and the significant events that are going on in Sangin are that catastrophic. Everyday firefights, very, very well-equipped Taliban fighters there. Crazy terrain, too. So the difference is with